to West Roxbury, where protesters are fighting to the bitter end against a natural gas pipeline running through their neighborhood. Gas was set to start flowing 2 weeks ago. The latest plan is for it to begin tomorrow, but protesters say it won't stop their efforts, maintaining there are major safety concerns which have yet to be addressed. The gleaming metal structure at the intersection of Center and Grove Streets in West Roxbury sends a clear message. The fight over the West Roxbury lateral pipeline is almost over.
I can't say I'm surprised, Adam. We got a late start in opposing this project.
Paul Horn is one of the activists who battled the project, which would send gas from Texas-based Spectra Energy into National Grid's local infrastructure for nearly 2 years. But even though that gas could start flowing any day, Horn remains convinced that the West Roxbury lateral is a terrible idea.
Well, worst case scenario would be an explosion, an incineration.
How likely do you think that is?
Don't know. That really isn't the issue. The issue is whether this is a risk worth taking, given what we know about this neighborhood, homes, businesses, schools, churches, nursing home.
Not to mention a quarry right across the street. Activist Mary Boyle says the regular blasting there can be felt throughout the neighborhood.
They blast every week with dynamite. I live about a half a mile away. My house shakes. It feels like an earthquake when they blast.
Which is one reason Boston Mayor Marty Walsh agrees that the West Roxbury lateral is a mistake.
There's a better way to bring gas into West Roxbury. There's a safer way.
And Walsh says despite the city's request, Spectra still hasn't provided a neighborhood safety plan.
It's my understanding that Spectra has sent in a response saying that we're not going to get one either. And I think that's a concern. So we're going to continue to push back.
But while the Walsh administration has gone to court asking the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, to rethink its approval of the project, this is a federal issue. Boyle says that's where she's hoping for a dramatic reversal.
Because FERC is a federal agency, it takes the federal senators to put pressure on FERC. So that's one of the things I'm working on now, is putting more pressure on both Senator Markey and Senator Warren.
And on Tuesday, Warren wrote FERC's chairman, urging him to suspend approval of the West Roxbury lateral pipeline until safety concerns are addressed. That could be enough to keep the slim hopes of the opponents alive. Whatever the final outcome, Paul Horn has a message for the rest of us.
This is not a NIMBY issue. This kind of facility doesn't belong in anyone's backyard.
To that end, West Roxbury isn't the only local community battling a backyard energy project. Protesters in Weymouth are fighting a plan, which is part of Spectra's expansion, to build a gas compressor station in the city. If approved by FERC, it would help push natural gas from Pennsylvania up north into Maine and Canada. Joining me now is Weymouth Mayor Bob Hedlund, one of the many vocal opponents of this proposal, along with Stephen Leahy, Vice President of Policy and Analysis at Northeast Gas Association. A Spectra Energy rep was not able to join us, but they did give us a statement about their expansion projects, which reads in part, New England pays the highest energy costs in the continental U.S. A big driver of those costs is the fact that we do not have the infrastructure necessary to bring affordable domestic supplies of natural gas to our region. The additional natural gas supply from Atlantic Bridge will help enhance the reliability of energy throughout the region and generate savings for homeowners, businesses, and manufacturers. The facilities will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to meet or exceed federal safety standards and regulations. So there you have it. Stephen, Bob, thank you both for being here. Bob, let me start with you. What's the connection between the project that is just getting going in Weymouth and the project that is almost complete in West Roxbury?
Well, the pipeline in West Roxbury is part of the overall pipeline expansion, but we have two projects in Weymouth, not only a small pipeline expansion, but we have two compressor stations on one site, and that's the crux of the problem. We have, while West Roxbury has gotten most of the attention, we think that the impacts in North Weymouth are probably much more significant in terms of that neighborhood already being overburdened by natural gas facilities and overall industrial facilities in the Fore River Basin.
Two questions in one. What's a compressor station, and why are you concerned about impacts?
The compressor station is what moves the gas through the pipelines, and they want to put a 7,700 horsepower gas compressor station in the Fore River Basin in an area that's already two compressor stations on one site. It's two different projects, Atlantic Bridge and Access Northeast.
Right.
And we have already in that neighborhood, we've got all kinds of industrial use, everything from an MWRA pump station, an MWRA pelletizing plant. We have a gas hub line there. We have a natural gas fueled powered generating station there.
So already a ton of infrastructure.
We've got
and you don't
fatty acid plant, and we have 900 homes within immediate proximity, 3,000 children within 1 mile. So that's why the opposition has been generated.
Stephen, let's turn to you. What is the rationale for this big push by Spectra to, with a couple distinct projects, spread their natural gas out into New England and Canada?
You know, the way I'd put it, so we're a trade association. We have several pipeline companies who are members of ours, including Spectra. And in this case, Spectra has one project they recently completed called AIM, which was in West Roxbury.
Right.
And that's moving more gas to natural gas utilities to meet rising demand for natural gas in the Commonwealth. So companies like National Grid and Eversource get the gas from Spectra, or could be Tennessee Pipeline out in Western Mass.
And in that case, National Grid went to Spectra, right, and said, we need more gas.
Right, we're growing, and they have the obligation to serve customers. And so in Massachusetts, we've added about 100,000 natural gas customers in the last 8 years. So demand is growing because the price spread between gas and heating oil was really spreading. Gas is a cleaner fuel. And now we have a cheaper supply close by in Pennsylvania, which is the Marcellus Shale people have heard about. But to get the gas from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, our current system, pipeline system, is, we use the word constrained. It's basically full. So at different points along the system, you have to add capacity. And as the mayor said, the compressor station is one way. It's like a little engine that, and it looks like a barn structure. It's a large engine, and so the gas would come through, and it goes through the compressor, and it's able to be pushed further along.
As someone who represents the industry, can you understand why the people in West Roxbury who aren't simply concerned about the new facility itself, but concerned about the fact that it is a literal stone's throw across the street from a quarry where blasting, they say, shakes their homes goes on? Does that sound like a good fit to you?
Well, it's, you know, every project has to go through environmental approval and siting and safety siting, and they do the engineering studies. And for West Roxbury or Weymouth, they do the engineering along their system. Where does it make sense, and where would it work? Now, I absolutely understand. I think I heard your bit of your lead-in story. This isn't just a NIMBY issue. I mean, to some extent, a lot of this is NIMBY. But to another extent, I recognize the mayor that, you know, gas demand is rising. We need to increase the infrastructure to get it here, but we're a congested area, Massachusetts, especially eastern Massachusetts, and we're not used to having maybe all these facilities. So additional facilities, I can see how people
If I can just jump in on that.
Absolutely.
It hasn't been, as we've experienced, necessarily just engineering. We think it's also economics, because we think that the alternatives analysis for other sites, in fact, we offered up a review of another site in Weymouth that was town-owned, that's along the pipeline, and there was no interest in even looking at it on the part of Spectra, because we think it was economics that is driving them to the location that they've chosen to focus on.
Something
so
similar.
It isn't just engineering, it's economics too. And by the way, just my own personal opinion on this issue, I agree with much of what's been said about the need. I served on the Energy Committee in the legislature. I was on the conference committee when we did the deregulation bill. I recognize the need. But, you know, that need can't be satisfied at the expense of the safety of a neighborhood. And this compressor station, or both of these compressor stations proposed for North Weymouth, are unlike any that have been done that we can find in New England, if not the entire country, in terms of proximity to a dense neighborhood, in the amount of homes that it's proximity to.
For what it's worth, I heard something similar in West Roxbury. They said that Congressman Lynch had urged Spectra to consider an alternate route for the lateral pipeline, and that Spectra did not. That was in a more industrial area. This one really literally is in backyards.
And part of what we're doing isn't to address domestic needs. The compressor station in Weymouth is to serve for export of the shale gas.
Does that change the equation at all, that some of this stuff is going to go for export as opposed to local needs?
Well, let me just add very quickly, too, about safety. I mean, it is it's a primary concern and for natural gas. And in terms of the siting process and the build process, safety is really priority number one. They want to take care of that. In terms of this Atlantic Bridge project, I'll start because Spectra has a couple of projects. So Atlantic Bridge, the customers are, utilities in Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, and then Atlantic Canada, some, but it's not a huge project in one sense. But so I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say Atlantic Canada would probably get 1/3 of the supply. So the primary volumes are going to New England
Going
consumption.
locally. All right. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. I learned that this is an insanely complex issue, more complex than I realized. Stephen Leahy, Bob Hedlund, thank you both.